and welcome to HEV, where today it's the review of week 13 of the Premier League, where we'll be going through all this week's action and dissecting it one by one. Dissecting it sounds so wrong, doesn't it? That sounds so wrong. I really should have used another word by dissecting. But I do this in one take, so there's no. We're going to go with dissecting, and the first match is. Oh, I forgot. Do I have to do? I have to do this one first. It is. It's West Ham Spurs. It finished West Ham 2, Tottenham Hotspur 3. Son, Lucas Moura, and Kane having the goals for Spurs, with Antonio and Ogbonna having the goals for West Ham to try and force a comeback, but none was so successful. Where to start with this game? And to be fair, if you notice in my prediction video, literally the Spurs West Ham part took about a quarter of the video up. Don't be surprised if it's similar. Here, I won't try and ramble on because it will just depress me, to be perfectly honest with you. But yeah, obviously Mourinho getting his first win, getting a win in his first game, I should say. He's not lost an opening game at any of his clubs. Since his first job with Benfica in 2000, stats that, if I'd known beforehand, would have made me think even more that we weren't going to win that game. But I mean, Spurs. To be fair, you can already tell that some players are vastly improving under Jose Mourinho. Dele Alli looked a different man. Harry Kane looked more active, more on it today. The defenders looked tighter. Even Serge Aurier. No, sorry, I can't even finish that. Serge Aurier was still awful. Some things never change. Serge Aurier was still awful. I mean, I've heard rumours that they're going to try and get Ricardo Pereira in January. I think that should just be any right back with working limbs. Any right back. Because, I mean, the way we did it was, we sort of make it like a theatre show with Sergio Aurier. What we did was, we made him go past one of our players and then just thought 5 seconds later, then we'll tackle him. So it has to balance out. He still has to be awful. But speaking of awful, let's get on to my team, West Ham. Yes, I am empowering myself. There's no point doing it otherwise. We were shocking again. And, well, at least what I can't blame is the fact that at least Pellegrini tried something different. He didn't start Roberto in goal. He didn't play the same formation that we've lost to Burnley and Newcastle in. And he definitely didn't do the same tactics that we lost to Burnley and Newcastle in. By that, I mean, he did all 3 of those things expecting it to work. And it failed miserably. I mean, in the first half, we had no shots on target. And the only reason we actually came back into the game was the fact Mikel Antonio actually thought, you know what, let's run at these players. Let's actually put some fight in. And actually, I'm being a bit harsh saying that he was the only one that was doing that. Because I think the likes of Snodgrass and Noble were doing it. I thought they had decent games. And even Ogbonna coming back, even though he conceded 3, was a vast improvement on Balbuena. It's just the fact that the only issue is they're the only ones that seem to, care. I know some people care. I'm sure deep down, Sebastian Haller, actually that's a good example of someone that does care, but doesn't necessarily show it, does care. It's just Snodgrass was running down everything on the pitch. Noble was throwing some good passes, making sure he kept the ball. It just seemed like the rest of the team wasn't working at all. They were playing under Pellegrini's stubborn, stupid formation and stubborn, stupid tactics, and just following his orders no matter what. I mean, I tell you what, I tell you what, Pellegrini. Ooh, you should have seen how passionate he was. He was literally standing on the touchline with his arms crossed. Yeah, that's really how you get to them. Yeah. But I mean, what has gone wrong at West Ham? We're now 17. By the way, Spurs now into the top half. So this is how tight the Prem is. Like Spurs will be with it in the top 7, I believe, but at least by the end of 2020. I think there's a small chance they could be in there before December. And before November, and I just realised that I think that's physically impossible unless they're playing on Saturday. Yeah, because they could be, but I don't know whether I can't remember they are. I think they are playing on Saturday. We'll look at it in a sec. But where's West Ham? Or where do we start? Where do we start with West Ham? I know the score line flatters us massively. It was comfortable for Spurs. It was very comfortable. Only Spurs made it really hard on themselves. We still have to be close. So one thing you notice about West Ham Spurs game is there's always there's not much in it always. There's only a couple of goals, one usually. But I'm of the same opinion. Pellegrini needs to be gone. Like, if he's not going to change the tactics now, when is he? I mean, I think we're looking at. We'll see how he does next week, and then we will potentially get someone else. Someone else, and the names I'm hearing are Sean Dyche, Eddie Howe, Chris Hughton, and Rafa Benitez. Bar maybe Chris Hughton. Even then, it's not the worst one. Bar maybe Chris Hughton. I wouldn't mind any of these three. The only reason I'm saying not Chris Hughton is I feel like that's not progressing. With the other three, I feel like we could progress. Uh, and I think the board need to consider this. Do you want a manager that is going to keep you up this season, or do you want a manager where, because how tight the table is, you could still get a comfortable top half finish if you change now, even challenge a little bit for Europe? I believe that is still a possibility. If we change our manager, it won't take much to get back into there. Only a few good results, a bit of good form. I genuinely believe that there is a small chance we could be challenging for Europe this year. I don't think we're going to get relegated. I believe the board will change something eventually. Whether it will be too late to change for Europe is my issue. So anyway, as I said, Pellegrini will be judged on next week. So it's a must-win game, surely must-win game. So I can't wait to see who we got. Oh bugger, we got Chelsea. We got Chelsea next week. We got Chelsea next week away. That's going to be fun, isn't it? We're going to lose. We're going to lose. I know this isn't a prediction video, but we're going to lose. We're going to get thrashed. It's going to be Pellegrini's last game, and then we're going to get someone in. Might as well be my prediction. Is there any bother in me doing the prediction video next week? On Thursday. Meanwhile, Spurs are playing Olympiacos tonight, actually, because I'm recording this on Tuesday. In the Champions League before hosting Bournemouth on the Saturday. We now move on. Thank God. We now move on to another manager and another club in London that is struggling at the moment. In Arsenal, they drew 2-2 with Southampton after Lacazette got a late goal in the 96th minute to equalise after Ings and Ward-Prowse took the lead for Southampton, with Lacazette having another goal in between. It's now Arsenal's another game with Arsenal not winning. They haven't won since their loss against Sheffield United, which is a horrible run considering it's been at least a month, probably a bit more. I mean, I will say you can do the maths. They haven't won since I started doing this channel. that goes for West Ham, to be fair, as well. They haven't won since I started doing this channel. So if you can work it out, then let me know. I mean, it's astounding how bad Arsenal are now. They're eighth. They were on a good run as well. They're eighth now. And it's they were awful, to be fair. Not on the plus side. Any Southampton chance definitely wasn't to do with Arsenal's terrible defending. Definitely not. By that I mean it was. I can't even get through that. Of course, it was terrible defending. Of course, it's Arsenal. What else is it going to be? Oh, nicely worked goal. No. We have to have David Luiz ball watching while Danny Ings runs through for the first goal. By that, actually, no. If he was ball watching, jogging back while Danny Ings scores. And I think what's concerning Arsenal is how many shots Southampton had. Southampton actually deserved to win that game. They were very unlucky. They had 21 shots in the entire game. And considering Arsenal were the home side, even if Arsenal were the away side, that's not good. But Arsenal were the home side there, and this is another addition where a couple of weeks ago against Wolves, they also had similar stats where they had a load of shots. Now, for people that have Leno in their fantasy team, they must be loving it. But for Arsenal fans that don't have Leno in their fantasy team, then it's very concerning. And I think, like West Ham, Arsenal want their manager out, and I think they need to get him out as soon as possible and look for a viable replacement. There are options. Even go for Poch if you must, because he will put you back in the top four. I'm guaranteeing that. Obviously, this might depend on Arsenal's next few games. They host Eintracht Frankfurt in the Europa League on Thursday. Then they travel to Norwich on the 1st of December on Sunday. Now, all I'm saying is Arsenal, if you do not win this game, the Norwich one, you need to sack Unai Emery. Like, simple as. Meanwhile, Southampton, who actually climbed to stay in 19th despite the good performance, play in a must-win game against Watford on the Saturday. Where they could actually get their first win in quite a while themselves. We now move on to Bournemouth versus Wolves, where it was Bournemouth 1, Wolves 2. So close to getting this one right. I say that, it's only in score. Because despite it being close on the score, I believe Wolves handily deserved to win this game. It was a game of set-piece brilliance, I will say. João Moutinho with the goal of the week from the set-piece, and then a clever set-piece involving a Adama Traore passing it in to Raul Jimenez to get the goal. And I will say, credit to Adama Traore, he did not look good last season. He's really coming into his own a bit. And Nuno Espirito Santo saying himself, he's really enjoying Adama Traore's involvement. And now this leaves Wolves in fifth, which is incredible considering the start they had. I believe they went like at least 6 games without a win. So it's very impressive that they're now high up in the table. Obviously, one of the main talking points, or one of the factors that led to Wolves Bournemouth struggling, was Simon Francis, their captain, getting sent off. I mean, they say he was his captain. Apparently, he hadn't played in 11 months. How can you have your captain not play in 11 months? It's like saying Mark Noble for West Ham. Well, he hasn't played since 2017, but he is our captain. He is our captain. I don't get that. Your captain needs to play, mate. But yeah, don't worry. Next week's just going to be like the last 11 months because he's not going to be playing. Despite the steep goal, what I will give Bournemouth credit, they didn't give up to the end. They did fight. But when you're down to 10 men, it's all, especially against a team like Wolves, it's always going to be hard to get back in it. And Bournemouth aren't going to be too disheartened. They will probably be. They'll probably think they should have at least got a point, especially at home. But it's not a game. It's not a season ender, especially not or anything like that. As for next week, Wolves go to play Sporting Braga in the Europa League on Thursday, where a point will secure their place in the knockout stages. Then go to a very interesting game on Sunday against Sheffield United. Meanwhile, Bournemouth travel to Spurs at home for Jose Mourinho's. Bournemouth travel to Spurs' home for Jose Mourinho's first game at home on Saturday. We now move on to Brighton versus Leicester, and I got this one spot on, baby! Woohoo! Yes! Yes, who would have thought I'd be cheering a result of Brighton-Leicester? That's quite depressing, I think. But I mean, honestly, this game went how I expected, to be honest. Leicester, with their blistering pace on the break, using it to great effect with Perez's goal, and then using it to an extent with Vardy's penalty, which was very interesting. It was almost like a game of hokey cokey. Basically, a Brighton player put his foot in, a Leicester player put his foot in. Ryan kept Vardy's initial penalty out, and then Mike Dean restarted the whole thing. No one put their foot in, and this time Ryan couldn't keep Vardy's penalty out. I will say the turn of events was quite nice for my fantasy team, as you will see later on. But having said that, I mean it was top quality performance from Leicester. They managed 19 shots the whole game and 9 on target. That's incredible for an away performance, I will say. Even and a side like Brighton, which no disrespect to Brighton, they are a very capable side. They're still 12th in the league, but it's still like not echelon. I feel bad for inside Brighton. As for Brighton themselves, they will be one thing they will be disappointed in. They might not be necessarily disappointed in the result because Leicester are a good side, maintaining their spot in second. One thing they will be disappointed on is the fact they didn't register a single shot on target. And there are 2 people annoyed at that. Brighton fans, because they didn't score, and people that would Kasper Schmeichel in, who, despite getting a clean sheet, didn't get any save points because he didn't have to make any saves. Actually, no, you'd be fine because he kept a clean sheet. I just realised that myself. As for their next games, Brighton play Liverpool next Saturday in the game where, you just go and, that's a bit patronising with Brian. I was about to say go out there and enjoy it. They'll probably do well. Meanwhile, Leicester are at home to Everton next Sunday. As for the next game, it is Crystal Palace versus Liverpool, where it ended Crystal Palace 1, Liverpool 2, and this was a scare for Liverpool, wasn't it? Obviously, Mane getting the first goal for Liverpool, and then Zaha equalising with 8 minutes to go. Now, for a split second, if you are a City fan, or pretty much anyone, you thought, oh my gosh, this could blow away. This could be Liverpool could trip up. They could trip up here, and then after that split second, you all thought they're going to score again, aren't they? Which they did 3 minutes later with Roberto Firmino ending a run of 9 games without a goal, which subsequently led me to taking him out of my fantasy team. Rule of thumb: as soon as you take someone out, they score. but it's fine. I put Jamie Vardy in. But but yeah, we all knew that they were going to score, and Firmino getting a goal from a corner. As obviously one of the big talking points was the disallowed goal in the first half. James Tompkins looking like he'd scored from a corner. If you see James Tompkins has scored, it's one of two ways they've scored. It's either a free kick or corner. And actually, it was a free kick. I forgot. I just realised I got that wrong. It was free kick. It was free kick. But the VAR brought it back up because it looked like Jordan Ayew had fouled Dejan Lovren. Now, the issue I have with it is it's subjective. It's subjective. It's not a guaranteed fact. And the issue I have is if it's not clear and obvious, which is what the guidelines is, VAR might as well just have clear and obvious in capital letters because that's what apparently it is. Then you shouldn't overturn it. You shouldn't overturn it. And at the end of the day, it's another call that's gone Liverpool's way that is going to potentially help them win the league later on. Like calls kept them in the title race last year that were a bit dodgy. Some of them, I know for a fact one of them was against us. I'm not going to go on about it because we were in no shape if we played Liverpool soon, which we do, to beat them. But yeah, it's just dodgy calls like that. They're going to ruin it for people. They're going to say, "Oh, look, typical Liverpool." I mean, Liverpool's Liverpool. I don't think they'll win the league on dodgy calls alone. But Liverpool weren't at their best. They haven't really been at their best for a while, maybe with the exception of the City game. But at the end of the day, title winners, even when they're not playing well, do get results, and this is what Liverpool are doing. Palace, and I will say Palace shouldn't be disheartened by this at all. This is now their last game in their tough run where they played the likes of Leicester, Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal, not Arsenal. But yeah, they now move on to slightly better things. They are now 13th. They have slipped down the table a bit, but it's so tight there. They can easily go back into that top half, even next week, where they will play. Where they play Burnley next Saturday, while Liverpool host Napoli in the Champions League on Wednesday, before welcoming Brighton to Anfield 3 days later. We now move on. To Everton versus Norwich, and Everton, how about you? It ended 2-0 to Norwich, where Todd Cantwell and Sunebi. Apologies to Norwich fans if any of them watch this channel. I apologise. I don't know how you pronounce that. But this is Norwich's first away win all season, and only their second clean sheet, which is very impressive for Norwich. They now move up into 18th. And they needed this platform. They needed a win eventually, and they've got that win. And they need to now continue this form, especially for people that had faith in Timu Puki. And also, congratulations, Timu Puki. You managed more than 2 points this week in fantasy. You're gonna please all those 2 people that still had faith in you after 5 weeks. After 5 weeks. As for Everton, I mean, awful. They beat Southampton last week. Last 2 weeks ago. Great result. They needed it. Almost messed up, but they needed it. It's this issue where it's now the following match week, and all that hard work's now gone down the toilet from losing to the bottom place side. If they did this a few weeks ago before this, they beat West Ham, my team, 2-0, and then they lose 3-2 to Brighton. So all the hard work is gone out the toilet. Down the toilet. How do I not know that phrase? That's such a common phrase. And Marco Silva is another man in trouble. I do find it funny the names they have involved. It's David Moyes or Mark Hughes. You could tell Everton's ambition through those things. To be fair, David Moyes, he's not terrible. Mark Hughes, I'd avoid at all costs. I don't think he's a good manager at all. I could see them getting David Moyes. I mean, I'm just hearing this week that Marco Silva will manage Everton for at least the next game, despite talks being held between Everton's chiefs. So it's a must-win game for Everton. It's a must-win game. It's a must-win game for Everton. Who they got? Leicester. They've got Leicester. Got Leicester on the Sunday. Yeah. Well, at least they can go. At least Marco Silva could potentially go out in style. Meanwhile, Norwich host Arsenal in Carrow Road, and based on Arsenal's form, they might be seeing that as a potential upset win, similar to Man City, get their form back on track. That could be a good opportunity for Norwich. We now move on to Watford versus Burnley, and Norwich and Watford are back down to earth with a 3-0 loss to Burnley after getting their first win last week, bottom of the league once again. Meanwhile, Burnley moved up into 7th, which is quite incredible. I will say, I know I got this completely wrong, 1-0. It was not a 3-0 game by any means. I believe that Watford, were very unlucky in that first half not to have the advantage because they were on top, to be perfectly honest. It was just 3 set pieces that outdid them. And their lack of defending with set pieces is so vital to avoid when you're fighting relegation, as Watford are. And it cost them dearly here with Burnley. And I'm not going to call them a set piece team because they are a good side playing football, but they can use set pieces very well. They took advantage of it. And they got their second 3-0 win in a row. Then again, it was against us and Watford, so don't staple that to the fridge, Burnley. It's not that impressive. If anything, it's slightly embarrassing. It was only 3 for us, especially. But yeah, Burnley now moving into 7th. What a job Sean Dyche has done at Burnley. You can see that the difference in Burnley when they don't have Europa League football. They are definitely a contender for. I'm not going to say they're going to be contenders for European spots, but they're definitely contenders to be in the top half this year. As for the next games, Watford playing a must-win game, and this time I'm not just saying that because they're bottom. Must-win game against Southampton at St Mary's. Now, to be fair, now it's at St Mary's. You know the Southampton's recent form at St Mary's might actually help them. Meanwhile, Burnley play a very interesting game against Crystal Palace. Both teams fighting for similar positions at the moment in the table. We now move on to the late kickoff where it was Man City 2, Chelsea 1, and another one right, baby! Woohoo! Yeah! But N'Golo Kante obviously taking the lead for Chelsea. But then De Bruyne and Mahrez sealing it back for Man City. I mean, it's De Bruyne. He's always going to score against Chelsea or do something. It's De Bruyne against Chelsea. You have to do something. It's like Salah against Chelsea. It's given. It's a given, my friends. Meaning City now leapfrog Chelsea in the table. You know what? Fair play to Chelsea. They went at City at the start. They went at them. And, that first 20 minutes, Chelsea were all over them. All over City. And they deserved their goal, absolutely. But after that goal, City just turned it up the notch that they needed to. They turned it up a notch where they needed to win. They knew they needed to win this game going into it. And to, keep a little bit of pace with Liverpool. And they did. They did win that. They did win the game. With some, despite the deflection, De Bruyne's movement before the goal was a good goal, and Mahrez's goal is an example why they bought him in the first place. Incredible. City back. I'm not going to say back to best because they're not. But they're back on the right track after a dodgy result against Liverpool. One thing I will say is Sterling's late decision in the game where it was overruled goal from him through offside. It's yeah, okay. I will say I'm happy that it wasn't given because I predicted 2-1. If I hadn't predicted something for this game, I'd probably say, come on, that is a goal. That there's no way you can say he's obviously offside. I don't think so. That's so dodgy. The VAR rule with what part of the body. It's like what part is your arm is the issue I've got, because some people are saying, oh, shoulder. Yeah, no, it isn't. but then how far does your shoulder go? It's all that stuff, which is ridiculous when it comes to VAR. As for both teams' next games, City host Shakhtar Donetsk in the Champions League before playing Newcastle on Saturday. Meanwhile, Chelsea host Valencia before picking up 3 points against West Ham on Saturday. Playing West Ham on Saturday. You wouldn't believe I'm a West Ham fan. We now move on to the game on Sunday where it was Sheffield United 3, Manchester United 3, and what a game this was. What a game. It started off with, John Fleck and Mousse scoring 2 goals. But by the way, Lys Mousse, different player to when he was at Bournemouth. Incredible player. I don't know what he was doing at Bournemouth, but it's incredible the player he's become now. But yeah, Sheffield United thought, oh, we've won this. Yes. No, they didn't show that on the pitch. I should point out that. But the fans were probably going, oh, come on, yeah, we've won this. And then within the space of 7 minutes, Man United just, I don't know what they did. I don't know. Did they just drink some Red Bulls in that 7 minutes? Actually, based on the age of the goal scorers, that's probably not the best idea to make that comparison. Because it was Williams, Greenwood, and Rashford. 3 goals in 7 minutes. All of a sudden, Man United are in the lead. They didn't just. They did not deserve because they were awful up to that point, and now Man United thought, oh good, oh we've saved ourselves. There's no way we can now mess this up. And then in the 90th minute, Oliver McBurney scores to make it 3. Look, it was checked by VAR. It's not handball. It's not. I don't. The only reason Gary Neville on commentary is going, oh, it might be handball. It might be. He's a Man United. He's an ex-Man United. Of course they're gonna. Of course he's gonna do that. Of course, and also he specialised in making noises. You've all seen the Torres clip. But I mean, Sheffield United. What a team. What a team they have. And they're not going to be fighting relegation. They're 6th in the league. It's absolutely incredible. I'm not saying they're going to fight for Europe. It'd be amazing if they did. But I'm not saying they will. But the squad they have, the unity they have, the determination they have to get to every ball. At least Musa showed that, especially in the first goal. But the determination they have is absolutely incredible, and it's a determination that needs to be mirrored by any club in the Premier League, mainly ours. West Ham, can we mirror that determination? But we're not. We've literally got the lowest amount of yards covered in the Premier League. It feels like for the 3rd season in a row or something like that. Anyway, back to this game. If anything, Sheffield United will probably be gutted not to take 3 points, and they probably would have if they had their starting goalie. Because I'll be honest, when making this prediction, I've just realised, by the way, and I do apologise, I did not predict 3-0. I just realised the screen. I did not predict 3-0. I predicted 1-0 to Sheffield United. I apologise for that. It must have been a typo. But yeah. Anyway, back to the game. Yeah, incredible game. What was I saying? Yeah, Sheffield United probably deserved to win that game. They had 12 shots on target to they had 8 shots on target to Man United's 5. Man United just had very clinical, which they can be at times. Meanwhile, Man United, I think similar. They need to get rid of Solskjaer if they want to achieve. They're now 9th after playing 13 games, which isn't good, despite how close that table is. That if they want to be challenging the top parts of the league, they need to be playing better than they did today. As for their next games, Sheffield United are playing Wolves in a very interesting game on Sunday. Meanwhile, Manchester United play Astana in Kazakhstan on the Europa League on Thursday before they play Aston Villa on Sunday. Speaking of Aston Villa, in our final review, it is Aston Villa 2, Newcastle 0, and that is not a typo. I did predict 2-0 to Aston Villa, so I got that spot on again. Similar to Wolves and Burnley, they used set pieces very wisely. Tomo Hurahan scoring a really good free kick, and then assisting El Hagazi in another free kick. And it was great performance by Villa. They're now up to 15th. Unfortunately, leapfrogging West Ham, which is not good. Newcastle dropped down to 14th. By the way, I should have called this the Seabrews Derby. I realised my mistake some way after doing the predictions video. So now I've said that. Let's move on to the game. So free kicks were the key here, for both teams really. Newcastle not defending them well at all, or set pieces in general, by the way, with corners, not defending them well at all. And they need to work on that in training. Because the irony is they're brilliant from set pieces, attacking wise, hence why so many of their defenders score. And to be fair, Fabian Schär probably had the best chance to score for Newcastle in this game. But they need to work on ways to defend set pieces, especially if they want to survive. Because I believe they're still in a relegation battle. I believe that anyone can still be in a relegation battle at this point, just on how close the table is. But they also need to work on scoring with attackers, because it's another game where Saint Maxim, Almiron, and Joelinton have not scored. None of them have scored since week 3. That was 10 weeks ago. football-wise. Obviously, there's been the international break, but 10 weeks ago, Premier League-wise, and it's not good at all. They need to work on ways. And also, I think they need to be more competitive in games because it's another game away where they had only 38% possession against Aston Villa. I know they're away, but they need to work. But it's a game where you can be a bit more close when it comes to those kind of stats. As they both move on, City have a tough run of fixtures. Villa, sorry, have a tough run of fixtures. The first one being Manchester United on Sunday. Actually, no, that's not very tough. It's the game's after. It's the game's after. Meanwhile, Newcastle have an equally hard game, playing Manchester City. Now, admittedly, they are at home. The last time they did play Man City was they did win. So that's just something to think. I'm not predicting Newcastle will win, so don't worry. So that's all the games. We now move on to the fantasy team, and I had a great week with 70 points. Yes, I know Kante's on the bench. I realised my mistake. But, other than that, De Bruyne got a goal with 7 points. Mane got a goal, 9 points. Aubameyang assist 5. Vardy captain, assist goal, 24. What was that? By the way, fun fact, I'm the only one with Vardy in my league, in my fantasy league. I do not know how, but I will happily take it. And obviously, Schmeichel and some of you getting some good clean sheet bonuses. So that 70 points means I'm comfortably still top of my league, and I look forward to staying there for all the time. So that's going to be the end of the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you like, share, and subscribe. I should point out, I will be doing a predictions video this week for week 14. I won't be doing a review video or a prediction review video. I won't be doing videos after that for a little bit because I'm very busy. I'll explain more on Thursday. But I'll be doing the prediction video definitely for week 14. So I will see you on Thursday.